We've got here, in America, we don't do kings. A call for a massive escalation of the conflict. We've got tweets saying ICE out of San Antonio. We've got ICE out of NYC. These protests are being planned for right now. They are preparing to launch mass riots like we saw in LA across this country, giving people instruction. And then we have, on the 14th of June, the No Kings protest. Here's a question for you. In this map for No Kings, it's an anti-Trump, anti-American protest. How do they organize all these? All of these different rallies. Now, first, what I'll say is, many of these rallies, even in Toronto, there's no way it's Toronto. It is. Wow, that's Canada. They're not really organizing these protests. They're telling you they're planning on doing it, and they've decided on a location for where it should start. They're hoping that if people just see this, they'll choose to show up. But who is supplying these organizations with the resources to launch such a coordinated effort? Because I got to tell you this. We do events here at Timcast. It is not easy to organize one, let alone 6 official events and 1,000+ ancillary events. This takes mass resources. It's all over Canada. Wow, Canada's got a ton, actually. Oh, I'm sorry, that's just Maine. But there are a bunch in Canada. Oh, is that just Maine? Oh, my bad. I thought that was New Brunswick. You got a couple in Canada. Sure, fine. Oh, here's on the border. How fun. International Falls, Minnesota. This is being prepared. This is being organized. So we're going to be joined, my friends, by Julio Rosas. He's been on the ground actually reporting on this on these riots in Los Angeles. Let's bring him in now. See if we can get all of this rolling. And loading, currently loading. Sources loading, video loading. I believe Julio is, how's it going, man? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hey, so you're currently on the ground at the LA riots. I mean, you're in a hotel or something, right?
This isn't it. But yeah, man, I got in yesterday. I was actually, funny enough, I was on vacation in Mexico, trying to get in some R&R before riot season truly kicked off. But I guess I'm a little rusty, given that it's been 4 years since the last riot. The last true riot I fully covered.
So, well, where do you want to say where in Mexico you were, or were you close to LA?
No, it wasn't like Mexico City to where I could just fly directly. It was a whole process. But no, it's just interesting because obviously, these riots are happening in part because the crackdown on immigration, and it's just funny seeing Mexican flags in Los Angeles being waved over burning cars. But what I always like to say is, like, you couldn't pull that in Mexico City. I mean, could you imagine if a bunch of Americans showed up and were in the main plaza burning cars and waving American flags? The Mexican government would crack down that so hard, people would be whining about the Geneva Conventions.
I'm pretty sure Mexicans would crack down on you. Just people who live there would probably come up and not tolerate that.
No. They actually, I mean, for all of its faults, Mexicans in Mexico have a lot of pride. So
well, so it was massive. I mean, this is several days long. They're saying that there's going to be more riots tonight. They're planning other cities to have big riots. There's talk of massive protests organized across the country for, I believe, like a week from now. I'm curious. We've seen a lot of these videos of people waving Mexican flags, but who are these people? Are you able to discern whether or not these people are actually Mexican nationals, or are they just Americans support Mexico?
I think, I mean, it's hard to say, but I just kind of knowing the culture a little bit more. I think a lot of it is just like people, like American citizens whose mom or dad were originally from Mexico, right? Or maybe a grandfather, and in particular, maybe their immediate family member is illegal. I mean, it is this weird thing, and I don't want to get too much into the. I mean, I kind of understand where they're coming from in terms of, like, okay, you are American, right? Like I am, right? I was born here, raised here. But obviously we took different paths, right? Because there's no way I'm going to go riot and wave a Mexican flag in the city. I mean, the United States is my country. But to them, they have this attachment because of this family member, let's say, and they think, well, we do all this stuff. This is racism, white supremacy, all this stuff. Colonialism. Los Angeles was part of Mexico at one point,
You know?
and so for them, it's like it's basically it's their version of like return, right? Return to tradition, return to how things were. Which is funny because they can have that national pride, but even though they're not necessarily, like I said, from Mexico directly, but it is just speaking for myself. It is kind of a interesting and at times a weird dynamic, but you have to choose. You have to choose. And for me, and speaking for myself, I obviously I know my name, I know what I look like, but the United States is my country. I like Mexico. Like I said, I was just there on vacation. There's a lot of things I like about it, but my loyalty and the country that I want to do best number, for the first is the United States. And obviously I want Mexico to succeed as well, because it's better for both of us. But that's why it's frustrating to see, because even talking to the Mexicans in Mexico saying, hey, I'm going to go to Los Angeles to cover this. A lot of them were actually saying, yeah, we understand why Trump wants to do that, wants to deport people. It's like, he has to do what's best for his country. So there is, I mean, he's not as unpopular as you might think in Mexico, although obviously I would say the majority is, but it's not an overwhelming majority, I would hazard.
Yeah, I think I was actually just expressing similarly. When you have amnesty, when you allow people to come here illegally, they'll have kids. Those kids are born in California. They are told, a lot of them are told these leftist ideologies. They blame white people for everything. They're told, this used to be Mexico until it was stolen from us in a war. We were routed, they invaded, and it's actually our land. You grow up with this. You grow up with Mexican flags in your house. You grow up being told of your family's heritage in Mexico. You go vacation to see your grandparents in Mexico. And then Donald Trump comes in and says, illegal immigrants can't be here. And what does that mean? It could be your parents. It could be your cousin. It could be your next door neighbor. Trump is correct. This is America with American borders. But for the individual interests of these people who are Americans, they're thinking, I don't know or care. I want what's best for me and my family are not Americans, so I'm not going to let you do this. You end up seeing them flying American flags. Now, the question, I guess, is at what point is this insurrection an invasion, and how do you deal with it? I mean, the Democratic governors are saying, don't do anything. Let me ask you this, actually. In your experience being on the ground, how would you rate the performance of the LAPD and the California State Highway Patrol or the state police?
I mean, they're doing the best they can. The problem is that they're not. You can have as many personnel as you want in situations like this. It's if they're unable to actually confront the rioters in any serious way. I mean, the whole reason why that we're in day 3, day 4 into this is because initially LAPD didn't respond to the rioters that were outside the federal holding facility. Which is exactly what happened in Portland. The reason why Portland in 2020 went on for so long at the federal courthouse is because it was just the federal agents and the personnel that they had to bring in, because Portland police was forbidden from even talking with the feds. And it wasn't until they were finally able to cooperate that the riots at the federal courthouse finally stopped. So that's why what's happening right now is such deja vu, where it's literally like, sure, it's a different issue, but it's the same thing where Trump is cracking down, and the sanctuary city mayors and Democrat, governors, they're not going to want to cooperate. They want to, borderline interfere with this, and that's just only going to rile up the people more, because while they might not like, let's say, Karen Bass or Newsom, they're at least being provided kind of that cover from their local leaders, and that does matter to a certain extent, right? That will have an impact. And then, of course, you have like the local, you have city council members, and you're saying we need to escalate our tactics and do all that. So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, I think. And the problem with Los Angeles and Los Angeles County as a whole, with this large population that's sympathetic to the illegal immigrants, is that you can secure the downtown area. But then what if something pops up in Santa Monica or Glendale or Burbank or Compton, right? I mean, Compton was kind of an area that got so you need unless you're going to play whack-a-mole, which is only going to let this go on longer. You're going to need a massive military response, and so I know the reported number is 500 Marines in addition to the Guardsmen, but I think it's gonna take a few more units from the First Marine Division because again, I mean, LA is just so massive.
Well, you called it. You said you were on vacation before the start of riot season. So
Yeah.
is this? Do you see this as turning into Summer of Love 2.0?
I mean, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I'd say I don't know, maybe, but with today and seeing the reaction from again the local leaders who are egging this on, and trying to fight the Trump administration I think this does has the potential to kind of get back up to that level of chaotic behavior. But for example, I saw that there's supposed to be a rally today in Tampa, Florida. That's not going to go anywhere. I mean, if stuff gets out of control, that's going to be shut down within the first hour, right?
That's MAGA country.
But there's Chicago, there's Portland, and New York City was popping off over the weekend too. So I mean, this is how it was, and that's why I took the risk going to Mexico, because up until this point, the only time when it was kind of like a chaotic situation was during the ICE operation. But then once the agents left, people didn't go to the jail or go to the federal courthouse or whatever. They just went home. So that's why it's significant that Los Angeles they kept the rioters kept the momentum going, and then of course the response, which then it makes them mad, and it just spirals out of control to where now it's just like we're just going to attack cops like LAPD, even though they weren't the initial targets.
We've seen a bunch of videos, actually. There was one viral video where ICE was performing a raid, I think somewhere in Massachusetts, and a bunch of protesters and rioters come out and start fighting with cops. So before Trump got elected, I'd been talking about the period that we're in. It's called the civil strife period. The civil rights movement was a civil strife period. Sometimes these things turn into civil wars. I don't see an immediate, in the short term, this becoming something like that. But we are starting to see the bubbling up of this unrest and these protests, this fighting with cops. And I had asked many Democrats, do you think Donald Trump will use the military to enforce deportations? Of course, they all said yes. It was one of their talking points. Trump's a fascist. He's going to send in the military and violate the law. And I said, okay, the question then is, do Democrats resist this or let Trump do it? And so what we're starting to see now lends itself to I think the obvious possibility of escalation to some degree. But either this turns into, I mean, I guess my question to you is, based on what we've seen so far in these other cities, in LA, do you think the Trump administration is going to really escalate this, to use the military to make sure these mass deportations happen?
Well, again, I wouldn't say it's Trump escalated. I know that's how a lot of people say. Well, that's what Newsom and Bass they're all saying. Like, well, he escalated it. None of this would be necessary if it wasn't for the rioters from Friday.
Correct. Fair point.
ICE, HSI. I mean, the White House and DHS have released the list of people that they were targeting in that operation. And it was people that we don't want in our country just because they shouldn't be here, number one, but also number two, these are some, these are not the very fine people.
Really bad dudes.
Right. So, these are not the, some I assume are good people. And so, but to them, it doesn't matter, right? It's ICE. It's the Gestapo is here. We got to fight them. And that's why it's so stupid that, because right now, yes, I mean, other people have been swept up in these raids. I'm not denying that, but the primary targets have been the criminals and foreign, national security threats. That has been the primary focus. And so, but they can't even wait. They can't even wait for more people who are just here illegally to with just like the moms and the young children, in bigger numbers. They just automatically just have to go to, all right, well, we're just going to start interfering and fighting. And so, I mean, look, this has been building for a long time. And I would say with Los Angeles specifically, again, because of the demographics, I mean, I was here in February when there were mass protests, and it wasn't because of a big ICE operation. It was just standard enforcement. And it was chaotic. I mean, the 101 back then was blocked. I was outside City Hall with a high school walkout, and within 10 minutes of it starting, the kids start fighting each other, and a kid got stabbed.
Whoa.
Yeah, in front of City Hall. So with Newsom and Bass saying, "Oh, we didn't have any problems until this operation," yeah, you did. You had massive problems. You had like a week's worth of protests before this, a couple months ago. So yeah, things have subsided a little bit since that, or before that. But they've just been hyping themselves up. They've been building themselves up for this moment. They've been waiting for that opportunity to act, and they finally got it on Friday. And I don't think it's going to let up anytime soon, because I mean, I just talked to a guy at ICE today. I said, "Hey, like, is this going to slow anything down? Because obviously, it can't interfere if you can't go out and grab people because you got a massive crowd there." But he said, "No, the plan is to still move ahead. I mean, Trump has the mandate to carry out these mass deportations. That's what most Americans want. It's actually popular.
Yeah.
It wasn't before, and they can thank the Biden here. And I always say the whole reason why we're in this mess is because of the Biden-Harris administration. Mass deportations would not have been popular if it wasn't for the 4-year border crisis that was purposefully, created.
Yeah.
So if anything, blame those two people."
Yeah, I was watching some videos. I mean, with the fires of the torching of the Waymo vehicles, the smashing of the police SUVs. I also saw a video of a guy punching several cops in the face. Now, I covered riots and civil unrest on the ground in the United States. I'd never actually seen it get to this level. Certainly, there were some wild moments. There were de-arrests. Sometimes there were fights, but to see a video of a guy punching several cops in the face directly and then running off, I was just like, whoa. I mean, you've got Democrats now at ICE facilities like Rep. McIver. She's on video closed fist punching a federal law enforcement officer. I think it might have been ICE or HSI. You've been covering this stuff for a long time. Am I wrong about this, or does it seem like they're more violent than they've been in the past several years?
Well, I mean, yeah, certainly since 2021, I would say, but and I would even say that the rhetoric has gotten worse in terms of egging on the rioters, saying that we need to fight back even harder, because I mean, you had a Los Angeles City Councilwoman the other day saying, if they're going to come in and escalate, we got to escalate. I mean, that's pretty direct, right? And so, and I think it's just because they know that the Trump administration is not going to tolerate this stuff. They are actually going to act, and that's why it's significant that Trump activated the National Guard under his federal authority. He said, "You know what? We're going to buy. Newsom, you're clearly not doing anything, so we're going to take action." That it was a little bit of a slower response, especially with Democratic governors back in 2020, to actually get things on to actually and as someone who was in the military, especially in the reserves, which is what the Marine Corps reserves, but the National Guard is reserves. I mean, that takes time. You can send out the order to okay, we got to deploy, but you got to call the guys in. You got to get all your stuff ready. You got to get the orders. You got to get all these plans and processes in place before you actually cross that line of departure. And that's why in times like these, you got to have decisive action. You can't wait a day or two because it takes a day or two for the reinforcements to actually come in.
Sorry, are you saying that you think Trump was prepping to pull in the National Guard before, like a day or two before they actually came down?
Well, that's what Holman was saying. He was saying that we're one step ahead of them. We're already calling in the National Guard. Wow. So I think they learned a lot from 2020, right? I mean, they were in office during that time, and so I think the plans were definitely in place to say, okay, with these operations and potential unrest, we got to make sure that whichever state that these are happening in, that we can quickly call it in. Now, they are kind of limited under the current activation that they're under, because it's not an insurrection act deployment, but it's still significant, because if you have the National Guardsmen protect a federal facility, that frees up police officers who can do domestic operations to get a better handle on the unrest.
I'm just thinking about the past decade plus, and you mentioned how we have a riot season, and I'm just like, man, I don't know. Was there a time when we didn't have a riot season? Because I feel like we did, and it's become sport for these people. It's summer. It's time to go outside and fight with cops for some reason and just join in, whatever the cause may be, because the cause seems to be different. You know, it's just whatever ideologically left-aligned cause. So I'm thinking about the NATO protests. I'm thinking about, BLM. Now we've got these ICE protests or the Palestine-Israel protests. And it seems like as long as it's summer and we can go outside, people are starting to do this. But is this the reality of where we're going? Every summer we can expect major cities to just have violence and firebombs?
Yeah, I mean, and even in places like Chicago and New York, right? I mean, it doesn't even take a controversial thing, right, warranted or not. All you got to have is a bunch of 200 youths show up at one spot and start just doing spontaneous looting and everything. We saw that in Chicago earlier in the spring. Like it was the first nice Friday of the spring, and a bunch of kids, teenagers showed up and caused mayhem. And the kid got shot actually at that one. That's why I always joke. That's why I always joke whenever I see these videos of when we get to this time, because there's a reason why the college encampments last year. There's a reason why they didn't start in December.
Yeah,
and it started in April. It started in April. It started in mid-April. So, I just think we're going to be in a season regardless. It depends on the issue, and depending on the issue, it will dictate whether or not it's just for the night or if it's a week long thing. Because with the Palestinian-Israel thing, as much as attention as we give that to demographically, it's not a lot of people in the country compared to, let's say, illegal immigrants, which is why this riot season has been a little bit more, because not only is the administration different, but there's just more people, like we were talking about at the beginning, that are more directly connected, that are saying, okay, well, I might not go out and march for Gaza or Israel, but I'm willing to march out for my tia.
It'd be funny if the Trump just comes out and he's like, you know what, we're going to stop doing all ICE enforcement until maybe November, and then we're going to ramp it up tenfold we're going to deploy the military. I wonder what their plan is for this winter, because smooth sailing. If ICE does raids and deports, let me add this. We're talking about how they're largely going after the criminal elements first. I honestly don't care who they go after. If you're here illegally, you got to go. It's a deportation. Okay, if you're here illegally and there's an order for expedited removal, we give you a ride home. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that if Trump makes massive moves come this winter, because he just gets in at the end of January, still a little cold. He's got to get his administration ready. But this next end of December, I doubt you can get 10 protesters to show up for anything, let alone a riot started, if Trump's doing ICE raids in the dead of winter. Because nobody ever comes out. If it's raining, they don't come out. It could be 69 degrees, and then everyone's outside. Rain starts, nice. They're gone. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, and because I believe it was 2020 in the winter, where it was the first time a Minneapolis police officer shot, and it was a good shoot, shot someone during an altercation, and it was justified, if I'm remembering correctly, but it was at the dead of winter, and yes, I know Minnesotans are used to the cold, but it was really cold, and because it was still Minneapolis, people did show up, but it was like 15, 20, and they did start a fire, but the only reason they started the fire was so they can keep warm. It was just it was a makeshift fire pit. And so, they weren't making Molotov cocktails or anything. They just wanted to stay warm, and nothing happened. And same thing in Kenosha, when the police officer that shot Jacob Blake, when the DA announced that they weren't going to charge him, it was actually January 5th, 2021. That's the play. And so I was debating at the time. Should I go to Kenosha in case something happens? But it was and they did prepare. They brought out the National Guard. They put the fence around the courthouse again in January in Wisconsin. And there was a protest, but it was like 20, 35 people, and they just marched around coldly, slowly, and that was it. And then the next day it was it was January 6th, so that's a whole other thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
well, no, so yeah, it is very weather dependent, and that's why I'm saying. I mean, this is a perfect storm, because even here in Los Angeles right now, it's supposed to be just sunny. There's no chance of rain. There's no chance
What's
of it
temperature
being
out
super
there?
cold. It's right now it's
70s?
let me see. It's in the 70s. Yeah. Well, it heats up obviously in the afternoon, but like it's supposed to be, yeah, it's supposed to be 75, 80, 75, 80s. So that's what I'm saying. Even the conditions, like just naturally, the natural conditions are favorable for these things to continue. Obviously, not just here, but even in Portland, Seattle, where it's miserable most of the year.
I love that there's like a science to proper riot growth. It's like you need the correct temperature and humidity level. Otherwise, people don't riot and you don't get your political outcome.
There is, believe it or not, there is a science to this. Now, I was there has to be the thing that's always the X factor, is the spark, right? It is the catalyst, because that can happen anywhere. But if you have it's kind of like it's like that fire triangle where you need all three components. As long as you have all those three, something's going to happen. It just depends on the duration.
I love too that if it's too hot, it could be sunny out and it can be 80. People start gathering, but then if by the heat of the day it's 90, nothing. They'll start dissipating. Some people might stick around. Heat isn't as detrimental to the riot as, say, rain is. I just absolutely love the idea that these people who purport to have this worldview, they're anti-fascist. They're sitting there going, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm anti-fascist, but no one ever said we were going to protest in rain. Come on. They go home.
And that's the thing. Don't get me wrong; these people are very dangerous. They can be, especially in the numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, for all their talk and bluster, they really are just they're wimps at the end of the day. Because you're right, we're revolutionaries. We're going to take on fascists. We punch Nazis, and then they instigate a fight, and then they cry on social media. Oh, I got shot with a pepper ball, or I got shot with a rubber bullet. It's like, you do realize like actual revolutionaries would get shot with real bullets, right? So I mean, like you're not like this is Grant. I've been shot with a rubber bullet, not because I was doing anything wrong. It's not fun, but I'm not the one proclaiming that I'm going to take on the Trump.
Was it one of those 40 millimeter expanding foam rounds?
It was the 40 Mike, right directly in the stomach. So no, it was Minneapolis. It was Minneapolis. It was the first one, because I didn't have any of my gear. I didn't have any gear at that time. I was just wearing my t-shirt, and so thankfully, even though the cop was in the wrong, he thankfully shot me where they're supposed to shoot you. Because if it was a few feet above, I probably wouldn't be living, and if it was a few feet below, you'd be talking to Julio Rosas right now.
Yeah, there's a video going around of a reporter from Australia getting shot in the leg with what was probably a foam round. And I love how in this video, you can hear some of the rioters going, "You just shot the press, man. What? You shot the press." And I'm just like, you hate the press. They're LARPers. It's so fake. I've seen these people steal cameras and beat journalists. It's just about what makes them pretend like they're good guys when they're the ones starting all the fights. But last question, real quick. Got a couple minutes left. What's your plan for today? What do you think is going to happen?
So I've gotten word that there's supposed to be people gathering back at the federal holding facility in downtown Los Angeles. I'm not sure how shut off LA is, because I mean I can tell you from last night. So many of the exits and the ramps have been closed off, so you can still use the 101. The 101, but it's not. You can only drive through it. You can't actually exit off. So it depends. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think people will still show up, but if they have the personnel to cut off road access, it could obviously tamper things down. But
interesting.
Yeah, this is how it is. Just wait and see.
Where can people find you?
They can follow me on my X account at Julio_Rosas11. They can find me at my Substack, mostlypeaceful.media. And I'm also the national correspondent for The Blaze.
Right on, man. Thanks for hanging out. I really do appreciate you coming in and letting us know what's going on. And stay safe out there, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Have a good one. That was Julio Rosas, friend of the show. We've had him on several times. He does great work. I'm not an on-the-ground guy anymore, man. You guys aren't going to see me at these protests. Hassan Piker was on the ground, of all people, but he said he was there specifically to support the riots and the rioters, so we get it. I still do want to say this, though, because I did a bigger show about this. Hey, man, any video coming from on the ground, even if it's from Hassan, is going to be good because he captures what he captures. He's going to try and focus on the cops. He's going to try and focus on ICE. He's going to blame them for everything. But the video is going to show you stuff. So, the more cameras down there during these moments, I think are the better for the historical record and what's going on. My friend's going to wrap things up. We're going to be rating our friend Russell Brand. So make sure you smash the like button. Share the show with everyone. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Once again, shout out to Steven Crowder and the Mug Club. You guys rock. Big fan. Killing it every single day. You guys know that Steven Crowder is the biggest live stream in the country? Man, we're number 2 at Timcast IRL. We can't hang, man. He's too big. He's too big. But so that's why I say this with all sincerity. Shout out, Steven. I really do appreciate the raid. Everybody who's a fan of Crowder, thank you for joining me for this hour. I'm eternally grateful. You can find me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Let's fire up that raid for Russell Brand, who's coming up next on the Rumble Morning lineup. And I'll just say one last time, man, you guys share the URL for the Rumble live show. Be it Steven, Vince, Evita, me, Jeremy, Russell. Post those URLs. Post them wherever you can. Share with your friends and family, on social media. This is how we win a cultural war, is when we are all, even to the smallest degree, an active participant. Just saying, look, man, here's a show that I watch. Come watch it. The secret of podcasts and live shows like this, I go to these meetings. I talk to these individuals. I talk to, these advertising guys. And I ask them, how is it that, this personality has a top 10 global podcast? And they say, word of mouth. Seriously, 100%. You can buy ads. You can try and get it. But if people don't tell their friends to listen or to watch, it doesn't happen. So thanks to you guys, Rumble owns the top live stream spots nationally. And let's make that trend continue. Thank you all so much for hanging out. And we will see you all tonight at 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL. Don't miss it. It's going to be fun. Michael Malice will be joining us. And these riots are going to be kicking off. So it's going to get crazy. We'll see y'all then.